From beautiful downtown Sacramento, it's time for Beach Blanket Fort Bingo.
Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Beach Blanket, Fort Bingo, Fort Bingo. Spazzy's got a show when you really want to know what's going on. Yeah. Beach Blanket, Fort Bingo, Fort Bingo. Art and music, golden blue, and your favorite comics too. Grab a spot and settle in, 'cause it's high time we begin. Beach Blanket Fort Bingo Podcast. Yeah.
Sometimes I wanna fall asleep and die off in a dream. The music takes me back to my old past when I was young and feeling.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. I'm your host, Steve Schnee. Now, before I introduce our special guest, I'd like to introduce my co-host. He's tall, he's charming, he's dismayed that Jack in the Box tiny tacos don't taste anything like their normal-sized counterparts. He's just finished filming season 2 of Access TV's Music's Greatest Mysteries, and he's the best co-host named Ronnie ever. Ladies and gentlemen, Ronnie Barnett.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be here.
Now, on this episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo, our very special guest is none other than Jerry Raney, guitarist, singer, and songwriter from the Beat Farmers, a truly exceptional band that played alternative music nearly 2 decades before the genre even had a name. A deluxe 2 CD edition of the band's amazing 1985 debut album, Tales of the New West, is being re-released by Blixa Sounds, and Jerry has graciously taken the time to come to the Blanket Fort and chat to Ronnie and I about the reissue and more. Now put your hands together and say howdy to Mr. Jerry Raney. Welcome to the Blanket Fort, sir.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Before we chat about Tales of the New West, let's go all the way back to the beginning. And do you remember the exact moment you wanted to become a musician, or was that sort of a series of events that inspired you to head in that direction?
Well, I think I always wanted to be one. You know, when I was a kid in El Centro, my mom was a huge Elvis Presley fan. And we were poor enough to where we didn't really have anything like a TV or hardly any furniture or anything like that. And but I had a radio, you know, and I was listening to Buddy Holly and Elvis and Richie Valens and all those people, and, you know, Little Richard, you name it. You know, I was in a Fats Domino fan club with 12 Mexican girls when I was like 6 years old, you know, and they were all teenagers. So I always really wanted to play. I would sing when I was a kid, impersonate Elvis for my mom. But really, when I started playing guitar was when the Beatles came out.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you live, Jerry? Where did you grow up? In San Diego area?
Right. Well, the first 12 years of my life was in El Centro, where I was born. And then for 1 year, we moved up to Porterville, which is like kind of east of Bakersfield. Then I moved to El Cajon when I was 13 and started 8th grade here in El Cajon. And that's where I've been. You know, I've moved around a little bit, but in general, I've lived in El Cajon since I was 13 years old. Thing that drove me over was I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, you know, and that's when I was a freshman in high school and went to school and the next day, and that's all anybody was talking about, you know, and all the girls were talking about, you know, I want to marry Ringo or I want to marry John, and all the guys, you know, were either the guys were like me that really dug it, you know, or else they were the jocks who were like going, you know, those guys look like sissies, you know,
Yeah.
their stupid hair and all that kind of stuff, you know. So I ended up going over to a friend's house, you know, that had a guitar, you know, just an acoustic guitar. And we'd go through the Beatle books, you know, that showed you chords and all that kind of stuff. And he'd play and I'd sing. And then pretty soon he started showing me a few things on guitar, you know. And then I was downtown El Cajon, and some there was this band called the Perennials, like a dance band. I ended up meeting the lead guitar player, and he started giving me lessons. Then I was in his band for a while, and I was singing and playing rhythm in his band. And when they kicked me out, I started my own band called the Dark Ages, and totally kicked their ass. We ended up being nice and popular. That's where it started.
Phone is ringing, I hear I put on quite a show. And the more I learn, the less I want to know. Well, I want to dig a hole and die, but I couldn't even if I tried. I found myself another lost weekend. Yeah, take it away, Jerry.
What was your musical experience before the Beat Farmers? Did you play in a lot of other bands leading up to the formation?
Yeah, not a super lot, but that band I was just talking about, I started was called the Dark Ages.
Mm-hmm.
And we were basically a cover band, but we were a cool cover band. I mean, we had an organ player, we were a 4-piece band, organ player, guitar, bass, and drums. And so we did a lot of Animals and Yardbirds and, bands that had organs in them, the Young Rascals, stuff like that. We had a really nice group of songs that we played. And like I said, we got real popular and ended up being a house band at a teenage nightclub that was a great place. And the old writer, Lester Bangs, went to high school with us. And he would come up and play harmonica with us, so we had a thing going out here, and from there I ended up having a band called Glory, which was very popular in town too. And I always had a good rocking band, but Glory stayed together for probably 10 years or something, and went everywhere from a 3-piece band to an 8-piece band and back, everything in between, and we were popular band that opened for a whole lot of we opened for ZZ Top and Steely Dan and a lot of really big acts, the Canned Heat when they first started out with their big hits and stuff. And
Was that a heavy rock band, Jerry?
Yeah,
like
it was.
Glory? It was the 70s and
it was pretty heavy. It was like what I was doing with my amplifier setup was kind of funny because I actually kind of invented the heavy metal valve sound that goes on nowadays that they've got their amplifiers, there was super distortion,
Oh.
And but what I would do, and I had my setup was 2 big 100-watt Sun amplifiers, and each speaker box had 6 JBLs in it. So I was playing through 2 100-watt heads and 12-inch JBLs, and I would take these smaller amplifiers and I just experiment. I mean, I would take the wires off the speaker, completely disconnect the speaker, hook it up to a speaker cord, and plug that directly into the front of the other amplifier, the big amplifier. And I couldn't even turn it up more than one, and it'd be louder than hell and super creamy distortion. So it was funny. But I'd always, when you do that, you're blowing it somewhere. And it took about a month, and it would blow up the smaller amplifiers. But I just go to a pawn shop and get another one, and I just keep doing it. And unfortunately, I blew up some amplifiers that would be worth a lot of money these days,
Right.
Same thing I did with guitars. I just buy one guitar and sell it to get another one. And I look back at the ones that I used to have, and I'm like going, dang, that thing's worth $25,000 now. I paid $200 for it.
Well, you don't do nothing but hide yourself. I'm getting drunk all the time. I'm like a fish on a line on you. You just come and go out to one big hole in your life. I just really take what you come and play with a while.
Obviously, you were ahead of the punk scene, but were you involved in the punk scene when that started happening in the San Diego area?
Yes, I ended up getting involved with that. From Glory, I went on to a band called Jerry Raney and the Shames.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just like a 3-piece band. And when the punk scene happened, the punk / new wave scene happened, it was kind of funny because being a lead guitar player wasn't what it used to be when that happened. It's like people weren't doing long solos or anything like that. Everybody's just playing parts like, right.
Yeah,
along the avenue, all the guitar player, and it was kind of corny for them, for a guitar. And anyway, my band, I still played long solos, and you know, I was older than the rest of the guys, you know, so
Yeah.
but it worked, you know, and we ended up joining in the ranks with the punk new wave movement, because there was a number of bands in town that were going, like Country Dick was in the band called the Penetrators.
Yes.
And in San Diego at that time, the Penetrators were the big thing, you know. And then the other bands, there was DFX2, which is the two twin brothers, Dave and Douglas Farage. And so the name of that band was DFX2. And there was Joey Harris and the Speedsters.
Yep.
And
all these bands we love.
that was going on. And Jerry Raney and the Shames ended up being in there with the other guys, you know.
Still, that's only wishing, and I know it's nothing more. Never going back, never going back, never going back out of that anymore.
Is this where you met everybody? And I'm guessing the Beat Farmers kind of like was formed as like a fun thing. It seems like listening to the live record, like.
Yeah, you know, it was that, but it was also a masterminded thing by Country Dick, really. He had this idea, and he was starting to sprout off from the Penetrators, because he was just the drummer in the Penetrators. He didn't sing nothing in that band or anything. And he started this little band called Country Dick and the Snuggle Bunnies. And Joey Harris was in there with him, and a few other people that were, you know, pretty big from other bands in town. Paul Kamansky, who wrote a bunch of Beat Farmer songs, was in that band too. And they were doing pretty well. And my band, the Shames, and them would play together, and, you know, things like that. And so I went to their last show because Joey Harris had got a record deal with MCA. And a couple of the other guys were moving out of town and stuff like that. So it was their last gig. And Country Dick had just kind of started in that band doing his show, where he'd get up and sing, other than just being the drummer. You know, he would get up and sing just like he does in the Beat Farmers, and they were the predecessor for that, you know. But he's up on a table on the last song, you know, and he was well aware of me. He was a big fan of my band Glory. I mean, him and his friends called us the American Rolling Stones. You know, they were really into the band. And, and he even hired us when he was the junior class president at Grossmont High School. He hired us to come and play. And we immediately got banned from the school district. You know, we snuck beers in there, and, you know, smoking pot out in the parking lot, scared all the kids, you know, except for him. Anyway, he was up on top of a table doing that song, "You Picked a Fine Time to Leave Me, Lucille," you know. And all of a sudden, at the very end of the song, he just falls flat on his face, microphone first, off the table on purpose, you know, but he just kablam, you know, the microphone hits the ground and everything, and he's laying on the ground slobbering, going, "You picked a fine time to leave me, bunnies. Don't leave me, bunnies." Everybody looking at him, and he's like sobbing and wallowing around on the floor, you know. And I went up to him at the end of the night and said, "You know, I think that what you're doing has a bigger chance of making it than anybody in town, really, because like Joey had been signed to MCA, DFX2 had been signed to MCA, and other people in town were getting these record deals. My band, the Shames, were trying to get a record deal. We were recording all kinds of things and sending, you know, packages up to the record companies and getting turned down by everybody. Everybody go, "Oh, we'd like the stuff, but, you know, we want to hear something more from you," blah, blah, et cetera. Anyway, I was talking to Dick, and I was telling him that, you know, I think you stand a better chance of really making a big splash than everybody else. So he took that compliment, and about a week later, I get this phone call. He says, "Raney, you interested in starting a musical mobile pleasure unit?" I thought about it for a second, because I had broken up my band, and he knew it, you know. There was a point where he was trying to get me in the Penetrators too, and I never knew that until recently, when the lead guitar player told me about it. But he was always sneaky about stuff, you know. Dick was. He just tried to make things happen. So anyway, it went on from that. It was just him and me. And he goes, "There's this other guy I want you to see," and it was Buddy Blue. I was blown away. I'd played shows with Buddy, but didn't really pay that much attention, because he had that band called the Rockin' Roulettes, and they were good. Raleigh was actually the bass player in that band too. But they were good. But I thought he was just playing a bunch of rockabilly covers, because he would do some rockabilly covers. And then I discovered that he had written a bunch of those songs, Then I was just kind of blown away by it, and he's going, well, what do you think about this guy? And I'm going, yeah, that guy's dang good. And then he was trying to find a bass player, and Raleigh had only been playing for like a year. It just ended up where the other bass players that Dick was looking for didn't work. And Buddy's going, well, what about Raleigh? And Raleigh definitely looked the part. He looked better than the rest of us for sure.
Yeah.
He was younger. He was 15 years younger than me. But so we just started showing him stuff, and he picked up on it, and he just ended up being a great bass player. So that's how that all came about.
Mama hates show business. Said it ain't no business to get involved in. Hey, yeah, she hates show business. Hates show business.
How did the band fit in with what was going on? Did the San Diego crowd instantly take to the Beat Farmers when you guys first made your debut?
Oh yeah, it was really something, because we went for like 2 months. We practiced at this place called the Hippie House, where they just let us use their house, and a bunch of hippies that had a big house overlooking the stadium. The cops never came and busted us, so that was cool. But then Dick had been living over by the Spring Valley Inn. The Spring Valley Inn is just a really small, dive neighborhood bar, and he'd been hanging out there, and he just asked them if we could come in and experiment on their customers, for free beer, free drinks, and so we did that, and it was immediate that, the place was small enough to where it was easy to pack it,
Yeah.
Not like it started off the very first night being packed or anything like that, but we had an extreme mixture of people. I mean, there were bikers and punkers and new wavers and just the old locals from the bar, and just a real blend of people, and people liking the band was immediate, and the word traveled really fast to where the point is, we made that album live at the Spring Valley Inn. We made that to get a record deal, and it worked,
Jerry, how big was the stage at the Spring Valley Inn?
There wasn't a stage.
Oh, there wasn't a stage. Okay,
We had to
I was
move the
wondering.
pool we had to move the pool table out of the way.
Okay.
But then, things were starting to happen for the band, and we still go back there and play sometimes. The place is still open.
Oh.
And we go back down there. We'll either play outside in the back parking lot, or else we'll just play inside and just completely pack it out.
Still no stage.
Still no stage, no.
Okay.
But it sounds good in there. It's really weird because it's got a low ceiling and stuff, but it sounds dang good in the place. It's mainly like a biker bar, really, but it just built from there to the point where, we had to move to another place, because we would kind of move into a place and be a house band pretty much, and play every Friday and Saturday or whatever. And so we moved into a place called Bodie's. It was a little bigger, and Bodie's was totally rocking out. Meanwhile, we'd entered a battle of the bands, where it was like a national battle of the bands, but the San Diego version of it, we ended up winning that. And if you continued with the battle of the bands nationwide, the winner would get a recording contract. So we won it in San Diego, and then we went, why would we continue on with this? We already got a recording contract now. Rhino had already came in and signed us, and Rhino and us really worked well together. It was a really nice marriage, So we had to keep moving up. And then, so we were packing out Bodie's every Friday and Saturday and charging an entrance fee and making some dough doing that. And then the big club in town was called Bacchanal, which held about 750 people and brought in national acts and things like that. And they came in and said, we want you guys. And so we ended up playing Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays there. And then, when Tales of the New West came out, we did a record release party there. And then we did a record release party at the Club Lingerie on Sunset Boulevard up in Hollywood, which is an interesting story with that too, because we decided we wanted to play at our record release parties. Back in those days, people didn't play. You would invite, have hors d'oeuvres and drinks and stuff, and invite the people that worked in music, So we played, and in our backstage was Dave Alvin and a young Dwight Yoakam, that I'd never met him, and he was just kind of like cruising around LA. You know, he wasn't a star or anything like that. And they had 2 acoustic guitars in our dressing room, and they were back there playing. And I'm going, God, this Dwight Yoakam guy really sings cool, you know. And
yeah.
so every time we went in and out of the room, those guys were just in there rocking out. So we played and got an encore. So we said, why don't you guys come up with us? So we brought, you know, for our encore, we got up there, and, you know, so Dave Alvin and Dwight Yoakam.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's giving me hints about him. She hears me stuttering.
Thanks for being there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marilyn, thank you.
Well, there's plenty of women that keep me satisfied. Women that don't need your cheating or your foolish lies. Well, I ain't gonna miss none of your embrace, so go shake that thing in someone else's face. Baby, you lost a gold mine when you lost me. Yeah, that's right.
Jerry, were you the first like band on Rhino that wasn't like archival or a novelty band? Were you the first act?
Yeah, I think so. They had some other acts, but they didn't have, you know, what we had anyway. I know they had some other people they were trying, you know, but
Yeah, I know they put out like a kazoo orchestra, you know.
yeah, things like that.
And they also
Jaffelty
did-
Fish, yeah, Jaffelty Joe.
But yeah, Beat Farmers, in my opinion, was the first really high profile, this brand new band on Rhino.
Right. That's as far as I knew that was true. But I'm not somebody that really studies things too much. I just play the guitar and sing songs.
Fair enough.
Now, were there any other labels interested before you signed with Rhino, or you just went with these guys because they were good guys?
We just went with them. You know, it's not like we were involved with Hollywood that much or anything. We'd gone up there and played a few times. You know, we opened shows for Los Lobos and the Blasters, and you know, did a show with TSOL and things like that, and it was getting interest up there. That's about it. We just, you know, the thing is, it was like just a one-off deal. It wasn't a big deal like they were trying to sign us to multiple albums or anything. It was kind of like, let's do this one and see if it works, you know. And it worked because you know, the promotional guy, they had one guy working on promotion, and the way it came about was really cool because it started with college radio, and it was like our cover of There She Goes was getting college airplay, and then everybody kind of started discovering Happy Boy, and that was getting airplay too, just because it's a goofy little song, you know. But then Bigger Stones got released as you know, for major radio. I started thinking about it, going, you know, we actually had like 4 songs on the radio off that album at the same time. The station down here in 91X went with Reason to Believe, and they were playing Reason to Believe on 91X and KROQ up in LA. And then KGB here in town was playing Bigger Stones, and the Bigger Stones was the one that was being pushed. So that ended up getting a lot of airplay different places. And then Happy Boy was getting played by everybody, and There She Goes was getting played all over college radio. And it's like, so I'm going, well, you know, that doesn't really happen with too many bands, really, you know.
No, it was a big record. It got a lot of attention. Like, it got a lot of press. I mean, this record was, I was a kid in Texas, and yeah, this record was everywhere.
Now take a look, there's no tears in her eyes. She won't take it, just any guy. What can you do? Yeah, when you see her walking on down the street, I see her looking at all the boys that she's gonna meet. If I see her messing around, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
There She Goes Again. You took that song and created something entirely unique to the Beat Farmers, to where it's the same song, but also has a completely different feel. And you guys definitely made it your own. And to me, that's the version I go back to.
Good, because that's the way I feel about that song too. Is I thought, you know, we owned it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing is, the first thing that I said is like, we got to get rid of that hitchhike lick that's in there, because that from Marvin Gaye, you know. I love Hitchhike by Marvin Gaye, but they completely ripped that off for that song. It's dun 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 dun. Hitchhike, you know, that's Hitchhike. What the hell's going on? We got to eliminate that, and it made the song a lot better by doing that, you know.
Now the album was produced by Steve Berlin, you know, from the Blasters and Los Lobos, amongst others. Was he your choice as the producer, or did the label present him to you?
The label pretty much presented it to us, but we knew him because we played with the Blasters, and and we were friends in the first place, so it was an easy meld.
Yeah.
He was great to work with.
The original album came out 12 songs, and that's the back of the CD there. Were these the only ones that you chose to record, or are there some unreleased tracks that are still in the vault somewhere?
No, we just did those songs at that session, because or those sessions. And the thing that's really cool about it is, all the basic tracks, we just went in the studio and played them completely live, like we were playing, put up microphones and sang and everything to it at the same time. And that was done at the Capitol Records building, their studios there. So that's we had a good sound for all the basic tracks. And then we moved over to this studio called Amigo Studios. It was, a little bit out in the suburbs, and did vocal overdubs and a few overdubs, and had some guest stars come in and everything, and it was done very quickly.
The album, of course, features 6 originals and 6 cover versions, 2 of which were, as we talked about, Paul Kamansky wrote. Were these songs like on demos that you had heard, or did he play them live? Or, what attracted you to those particular songs, or did he present them to you?
Like I said earlier, he was in Country Dick and the Snuggle Bunnies with Dick. So he pretty much wrote California Kid for Dick to sing.
Right.
And so that one was there because of that. And I'm pretty sure they played that in the Snuggle Bunnies. And then Bigger Stones, I had that just, Dick presented that to me. And I'm not sure if they used to play that song or not, but, I just went, that's a great song. And Paul Kamansky's a great songwriter. He really does some stuff with his lyrics and chord progressions.
It seems like we wrote bigger stones back then. Seems like we wrote bigger stones. Seems like we wrote bigger stones back then. Seems like we wrote bigger stones.
Happy Boy, huge. Everybody seems that's like the first song that people think of sometimes when they talk about the Beat Farmers. It was co-written by Dane Conover from the Puppies and Trees. How did that fall into your lap?
We all knew each other down here, and especially Dick knew everybody, in that whole punk new wave scene. He knew everybody. And that was Dane Conover. And then the other guy, Jeff Becker, was in a band called Four Eyes down here. And everybody had glasses in that band. But it's kind of funny too, because Jeff Becker had like left town and stuff, and nobody could even find him to give him his royalties from Happy Boy.
Wow.
They finally found him. I think he was living on the streets in like Rochester, New York, or something like that. They found him and gave him this big old check.
Wow.
But yeah, that song was funny because it got played on all the stations. It wasn't something that went up the charts like Bigger Stones did or Riverside did later and stuff like that. But everybody played it. It was the Friday good time song for going to work and going home from work. So country and western stations play it, rock stations play, even the jazz stations would play it. So
yeah.
Dr. Demento
all over the place. Yeah, Dr. Demento put it on in one of his albums.
Yeah.
I was walking down the street on a sunny day. Hubba, 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 hubba. A feeling in my bones says I have my way. Hubba, 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 hubba. Oh, I'm a happy boy. Oh, I'm a happy boy. Oh, ain't it good when things are going your way? Hey, hey. My little
Yeah, see, I love the fact that that means the Beat Farmers are still played today, and everybody knows that song, it seems like. But I still, I consider it sort of the Ringo song, the sort of Yellow Submarine, where it's just like, but you have to listen to the rest of the stuff to really get an idea of what the band sounds like, because there's so much more depth to the Beat Farmers than Happy Boy. This album in particular is just super special because of that. This album is still timeless and magic today, 300 years later, or however long it's been.
Yeah. It really is. What's funny is that we recorded that for less money than any of the other albums. The thing is that the band just had this magic when we first came out, and it's it continued on. Once Buddy had enough and decided that he didn't want to do it anymore, then Joey came in and it changed the band, but Joey Harris really wrote a lot of great songs too. And, but that's when we actually had signed over to Curb Records.
Yeah.
which is another reason that Buddy actually left. He didn't like what Curb Records was trying to do. They were a country label, and at the time we signed with them, they wanted a rock and roll band. So that's why it actually sounded kind of good. We didn't necessarily want to be on that record label, but they had 6 of the top 10 country hits, and they wanted a rock band. And we're going, okay, they're going to really do it for us,
Yeah.
And then the whole idea that was them and then MCA, it was like a combined thing. It was, and MCA was a distributor, and they shared responsibilities, and that ended up being a battle too. So
Yeah.
And then Country Dick was always unhappy because they immediately didn't want us to be a novelty act, and they only wanted him to have one song on each album, basically, and that didn't sit well with him. Especially when we're doing live shows and people are eating him up. He was just kind of looking at it like, well, the people want me.
Yeah.
I got my 45 right by my side. Oh, I'm the California kid. I hope you're quite prepared to die.
Speaking of that, Jerry, I've always wondered, on the cover of Country Dick has a very different image on this album cover than we know him having. Is this how he performed at the time, or did he clean it up for the album cover? Or
no, he looked that way back in those days, and like I said, he was Penetrator's drummer right before.
Right.
This is only like months. He might even still been playing in the Penetrators, but at this time,
So the cowboy hat and the raincoat that developed.
Right, that came later, and he was back then. He was still kind of Dan McLean and just kind of slipping over into being Country Dick, and he was working on the persona.
Okay.
It was kind of weird because he ended up turning into Country Dick.
In the big rock candy mountain, all the cops have wooden legs, and the bulldogs all have rubber teeth, and the hens lay hard-boiled eggs. Forest trees are full of fruit, and the barns are full of hay. I'm bound to go where there ain't no snow, where there ain't no fall, and the wind don't blow, in the big rock candy mountain.
This 2 CD edition of the album features the live show that we were talking about earlier, and you have the vinyl copy of that with you, Jerry?
Yeah, this one right here was
so the bonus disc is that album.
Yeah, it makes a perfect companion on the CD set, right? With the album. It really like shows the band at that stage of their career.
And that's actually the recording that you made before the first album when you were trying to get assigned to the label.
Yeah.
Okay.
We actually did that, recorded that with a 2-track tape.
Wow.
Live at Spring Valley, and there was probably only like 20 people in the place, and we just did it so Rhino could hear it, and it worked, And the thing
like
is,
you
it's
said
so
before,
fun.
Jerry, it sounds good in that place. I mean, it's a great recording.
Yeah, and it's cool, and it's loose, and you I love the way some of the band are still in there, like I'm going, kill the jukebox, and then Dick's going, well, we'll be here tomorrow night too. There's no cover charge on Sunday. They just showed the young innocence of the band, and it's I mean, it's a blast listening to it, because there's songs on there that we used to do when we first started that it never ended up on anything else. And some of the originals, like Assembly Line Rock by Buddy, and then Country Dick doing Lonely Blue Boy is just hilarious.
Yeah.
And Mondo isn't on anything else, and that song's hilarious and X-rated, and
Yeah.
Along with like the Blasters, the Knitters, and some other bands, the Beat Farmers were one of the first really high-profile Americana bands. And in my opinion, you guys paved the way for Jayhawks, Wilco, bands like that. Do you often feel that's kind of overlooked?
Yeah, I think they a lot of times they'll be talking about these other bands that made it a little bit bigger than we did, really, but we made the splash to get them going a lot of times, and what was funny about us is, if any of those bands were going to have the Beat Farmers open for them at a concert, they were kind of in trouble, because we would take over, and it like not very often did, I mean, we'd almost always get an encore, and then we'd play, we didn't want to be rude, because the other band was going to come on and we get an encore, and then they try to get us to do another encore,
Yeah.
and we'd have the place worked up, and then we would go out, instead of hanging out backstage, we would go out and hang out with everybody and party with everybody and watch the next act and everything,
Yeah.
The personality of the band and just the idea that we were partying on the stage and just drinking beer like pigs and still rocking out like crazy, and Country Dick could drink more than any person I'd ever seen and keep his cool. And I mean, there he is with cowboy boots on. He's like 6'5" and 240 pounds, and he's tiptoeing across people's tables,
Yeah.
No, and pouring the beer on itself. How much beer did you have on the rider every night required, Jerry?
3 cases.
Wow.
So there's 3 cases of beer and a bottle of most of the time it was a bottle of either Jack Daniels or a Captain Morgan. And then they'd have to feed us too. And if they didn't feed us, they had to give us some money to go out to eat, So we had it covered. And if we didn't drink all the beer, we took it with us, So when we'd be on tour, we'd have nights off. We hardly ever had to go to a liquor store and buy any beer.
Yeah.
How many cases do we have? We have 6 cases. We're okay for the next 2 days.
Tell us what it means. Still at the end of the modern day, people find some reason to believe.
How did you hook up with Dan to reissue this?
Well, we've been in touch, and Sully, my bass player, he used to work at Tower Records, and they knew each other before I knew either one of them, really. I knew Sully because he was in the Penetrators, but it's not like we hung out all the time or anything like that, And Dan had been the one. We met him when he's down here going to San Diego State College, and he'd come in and see us, and then he just was blown away by the band and went up and got some of the other people from Rhino, because he was just like the Rhino representative for San Diego, and he'd go in the music stores and all that kind of stuff, And we stayed in touch because I always liked the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he would call up, and then he just said, well, this company I'm working for now, we're starting to re-release things, and then he was asking me about some of my songs. I said, tell you what, Dan, I would actually like you guys to just take over all my songs, just take them, and you guys take care of the publishing, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to slowly work on that, and each time we get the rights to these records out, we'll keep doing this.
But where do they go when they start to grow? They go home to bed every night, 'cause when they start working, they get tired and slow, getting married and starting new life.
Where can viewers go to keep updated on all things Jerry Raney and the Farmers, Beat Farmers? What else? Is there a website, a Facebook page?
There's the Farmers Music, or the Farmers SD for San Diego. And then there's Beat Farmer stuff mixed in with that. I believe that would be the place to go.
Well, that's it for this episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. I'd like to thank my co-host, Ronnie Barnett, and our very special guest, Mr. Jerry Raney from the Beat Farmers, for talking about the brand new reissue of the Beat Farmers and the history of the band. And we really appreciate all of you watching, and we'll see you next time on Beach Blanket Fort Bingo.
Yeah, it seems like we rolled bigger stones back then. Seems like we rolled bigger stones. Seems like we rolled bigger stones back then. Seems like we rolled bigger stones. Yeah, seems like we rolled bigger stones back then. Seems like we rolled bigger stones.
I just have one thing I want to say, just a personal thing, Jerry, which you don't know, but the Beat Farmers changed my life. And that's because you did a tour with the Pandoras in 1996. And I'm from Houston. You played Houston. I went to the show and I met Kim from the Pandoras. We hit it off as friends. It was not romantic, but we hit it off so much. I drove to Austin and saw you at Liberty Lunch the very next night. And me and Kim really hit it off. And I came out here a month later. We became friends. This is 1986. And we remained friends. And then 3 years later, we became boyfriend and girlfriend. I moved to Los Angeles and we formed our band, the Muffs, in 91. And I don't know if I would have met Kim or become friends with her if not for Beat Farmers Pandora's tour. So
Oh, cool. The
So-
Wild Girls.
yeah, oh yeah,
They
oh
were,
yeah.
they were pretty nuts.
Uh,